Back in July, I experienced chapters 3 and 4 of Deltarune for the second time by watching my best friend's playthrough, and something about Raise Up Your Bat got stuck in my mind. A theory that seemed pretty out there, that I knew would take a lot of effort to convince anyone of, but... Oh. Des is the soul.
And it's not just me saying it, other people say it!
MJ the Shiny Hunter.
Says it!
Okay, so clearly I took too long to make this, but my thought process is different enough from MJ's that I figured I would go ahead and make my video anyway. Let's start with the line of Raise Up Your Bat that got this all started for me. Most of the fandom believes that the knight is Des, and I agree. If you aren't familiar with that theory, you can pause the screen now to look at the evidence for it, but a key part of that is Raise Up Your Bat. It's Des's favorite song, and the knight's weapon is a bat that transforms into a sword. The lyrical similarity to Don't Forget implies that song is also about Des. Don't forget, Des is with Chris in the dark. Whatever that means, it must be important. And let's talk about that word ark. You've probably heard it before from Noah's Ark, the biblical story about a man bringing 2 of each animal onto his boat to shield them from a flood. But what you might not know is that this word does not mean boat. It means a place where you put something to keep it safe. Come follow me into the dark with your heart as the shelter, essentially. Thinking about that lyric, this idea whispered itself to me. What if Des's soul is inside of Chris's soul? What if we play as Des? But wait, don't we literally play as ourselves in this game? I understand why we tend to think that, but I've been questioning that idea more and more as the story has unfolded. Chris already has a birdcage in the room in Chapter 1, and there is already a bloodstain next to it. When Chris goes off in the bathroom and runs the faucet to mask the sound of ripping their heart out in Chapter 2, Toriel says they just do that sometimes. When Carol says, "As you know, you're welcome here any time," the word you is the same color red as the soul, implying that's who she means by you. As you know. What an odd thing to say to a person who you just met, as would be the case if the soul is literally the player. That would be like if I assumed that everyone watching this video has already seen 47 hours of Deltarune theories and said, "As you know, Des is the knight." And most of all, there's a scene that I can't make sense of if we're playing as ourselves. Or rather, a lack thereof a scene. Chapter 3 ends with the shelter opening up for Chris. Chapter 4 opens with Chris waking up the next morning. The fountain was definitely sealed, which means it's impossible for the soul to have been absent from Chris's body for that entire stretch of time. This is the only period of time from the beginning of Chapter 1 to the end of Chapter 4 where we have less information than the soul. And if we knew what happened between Chapters 3 and 4, we would not be asking a lot of the questions that we're asking right now. But if the soul is a character who we are role-playing as, this is a normal narrative device. I don't expect everyone watching this to subscribe to my theory. Asking you to believe that the soul is not us is asking a lot of you. I just want you to take the following into consideration. This character existed in this game world before you. This character met Carol before you. This character has access to vital information that you don't have access to. Can this be you? Didn't I just say the knight is Des, though? Yes, I did. I believe that the knight is Des's body. Its first scene makes great use of just a few moments to give us our first impression of it, and we can observe 2 things about this animation when it first turns around. One, that it's doing a sickly lurch. This pose reminds me of Chris's standard pose when they don't have the soul. 2, that it's drippy.
Ruby and never Ruby.
Whatever the knight is, it's amorphous and melting. We see more of that quality when it transforms into a bird, and when Susie confronts it in Chapter 4. Its face shifts around as they speak, and it starts dripping when it laughs. This quality reminds me of the monsters whose bodies persist after death that we see in Undertale, Undyne the Undying and the Amalgamates. The knight has access to the shelter, and given that the sounds we hear from it are Lab Entry 17 from Undertale slowed down, it's safe to assume that's a laboratory. Injecting Des's body with determination would preserve it, but a monster's soul cannot persist outside of its body. Is there any way to preserve that? Just one that I know of. Monsters and humans have a unique way that they can interact. One can absorb the other's soul after it dies. There are 2 instances of this happening in Undertale. One is the ending of the neutral route, where Frisk absorbs Asgore's soul to leave the underground. Based on this, we know what a human soul that has absorbed a monster soul looks like. It looks like a human soul. The other instance is when Azriel absorbs Kara's soul after their death. Note that Azriel is in control of the body. Kara wants to attack humans, but Azriel won't allow it, so they don't. They take every hit the humans give them and walk away. There is only one human in town, so Carol could only go to Chris to ask for her daughter's soul to be absorbed. It's a good thing for her that Chris is someone she's known since their childhood. At the end of Chapter 4, Carol tells Chris, "Don't forget, you promised." This shows us that Chris is collaborating with her in the night out of a sense of obligation. If Chris is the only hope of Des getting her soul back, of course they would feel obligated to make it happen. If Chris is the only one who can preserve Des's soul, the soul of their family friend, of course they would do it. If you'll allow me to go fully into speculation for a moment, here's what I imagine could have happened. Des and Chris were playing in the woods outside of the Holiday family's house one day when something went wrong. Des died. She fell down, in the Undertale sense. Chris went and got the nearest adult for help, which was Carol, and promised they'd do anything to help her. Since Carol knows all about what goes on in Hometown, she knew what the shelter was like, so she brought Des to Gaster in hopes that he might be able to do something for her. Gaster injected her with determination to keep her body intact, while he prepared an artificial human body to absorb her soul. And to that, Carol said, "Absolutely not. No daughter of mine is going to be kept inside an experimental body while I have a real human right here who promised they'd do anything for Des." Well, that's all great, but does anything in the game specifically point to this idea? In my opinion, yes. In the third S-rank room in Chapter 3, there is a black monster who has a unique mechanic. It's one of two monsters who has an interesting placeholder sprite dataminers have found. When you remove the value Toriel from the code, the white cloak becomes a brown deer, and the black monster becomes a black deer. The implications of that are clear. Just as the white cloak represents Noelle, the black monster represents Des. The black monster moves in sync with Chris until Chris steps on a button, at which point you can only move the black monster. Let me repeat that. When Chris takes an action to remove the link between them and Des, you play as Des. I know there are other ways to interpret this segment generally, but what other interpretation is there of the part where you only play as Des? I do have my doubts about this theory, but before I get into that, let me show you a few things that would hit different if Des' soul theory is true. They're not really significant enough to be evidence, but I think they're cool. 1. When the soul is watching Noelle in Chapter 2, she says, "I wish Des could see this right now." 2. Chris beats the soul with a hockey stick in Chapter 4. If this theory is true, this would be parallel with Des beating Chris with a wiffle bat like Noelle talks about in Chapter 1. 3. Chris keeps the soul in specifically a birdcage. In storytelling in general, that's often a symbol of something that simultaneously keeps you safe and keeps you trapped. Here's an example from Hadestown.
If you don't even want my love, I'll give it to someone who does. Someone grateful for the fate. Someone who appreciates the comforts of a gilded cage and doesn't try to fly away.
Now, with all that said, the reason I'm not sure about this theory comes down to one thing. The Weirdroot. I don't think Des would do that to her sister. She loves her, and she was very protective of her. But here's why I haven't written the idea off entirely. Carol's theme song is called C, and there's a song exclusive to the Weirdroot called D. It sounds like this. According to YouTube user Virtual, the song as we hear it in the game is slowed down by 140.85%. Here's what it sounds like at its original speed. That's basically the baseline of Raise Up Your Bat. Why in the world is there a Des song exclusively found in the Weirdroot? Seriously, I don't know. Help me out here. But because of that, I can't say definitively that she has nothing to do with that root. So, there you have it. This theory is a pretty big swing, but I hope you see now why I can't stop thinking about it. I'll run you through the list real quick of all the mysteries it would explain. What does "Don't forget I'm with you in the dark" mean? What does "Your heart as the arc" mean? If we aren't playing as ourselves, then who are we playing as? Why is the knight sickly and amorphous? How is Des's monster soul being preserved if it's not in her body? Why is Carol working with Chris? Why does Chris feel obligated to work with her? Why does Carol speak directly to the soul like she already knows it? What's the deal with the monster in the sword root who represents Des? I've noticed that throughout the fandom, when we earnestly engage with the information that we have, we tend to get closer to the truth. We can't predict what will happen in future chapters, but the act of trying to see how the pieces fit together brings us closer to understanding the story. There is no Sheriff Woody in TV World, but Asgore's favorite show is a cancelled cowboy puppet show. Chris isn't the Knight, and there are not multiple Knights, but Chris is working closely with the Knight in a similar role. The Knight is not Gerson brought back from the dead via the power of Dark Worlds, but Dark Worlds can bring back the dead in some capacity, and that concept is demonstrated through Gerson. I'm not really expecting to be right with this theory, but I do think I'm onto something. My hope is that considering this idea opens up new ways to look at Deltarune for you, like it did for me. Thank you for watching.